Thank you very much. Just briefly, just a comment. There was a complaint made that the shortage, the problem is no longer that there's not enough vaccine, but people don't want the vaccine. Perhaps I can give you some information how this was dealt with. There was no real public discourse on this. People were forced, in fact. So that's why people are rejecting everything that comes from the pharma industry concerning COVID. Perhaps you should learn this lesson, take that information with you. Perhaps it'll be better. Now I have a brief question, and this is for Mr. Triumph. It was already mentioned. However, you didn't answer the question. Have you started investigations to see whether the spike protein in your vaccine actually remains in the upper arm, in the injection site, or does it spread throughout the body and then continues its production? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have a very last question for you, maybe also as a sort of wrap-up. How would you look to the pandemic treaty? What would be necessary to be part of the pandemic treaty from your point of view and your lessons learned? Dr. Eshtal, please, for the final answers.
The final answer on the whole set.
On the whole set, and please do not exceed, let me have a look at the time, 4 minutes, please. 4 minutes. I know it's very difficult,
Yep.
I know it's very difficult, but then there's Mr. Triumph, and we are over time already. But 4 minutes.
I try to accelerate.
Yeah, good. Thank you
again,
very much.
Other antivirus, other products may be cheaper. Of course, the problem is you have to demonstrate it works. I mean, there were not. If we would have other products, we would have other products. But apparently, there were none which showed to work besides the one we have for the hospital, and now the newer ones which are now in the market. So that is the reality. And again, everybody would have liked to see something else also. That's I think important. I think in terms of I think overall. I think what the other one? Just give me a lot of single questions. I think in terms of transparency, we try to be transparent as possible, sharing the clinical data, sharing everything around it, sharing about the production process, and the value the product at the end of the day represents. Yeah, I think we try to. It is a pity if it doesn't come across like that, but we certainly try to do that to the maximum possible. And also sharing knowledge. As we mentioned before, we try to share with the companies we partnered in the low-income countries, the generic companies which we have there. We share the whole of the production process and how to produce the products. So we try to do that. So because just telling them you can do it is not enough. You have to share, of course, how to do it. The know-how is important. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible that they do it. So we try certainly to facilitate that they actually are able to produce the products. And we're certainly sharing whatever we can in terms of the research we have, again, the data and so on. So that's at least our intent. I think that was the majority of the questions. I hope so.
Top. Thank you very much. Monsieur Triumph.
It's a challenge. There were a lot. On the first question, what is the biggest hurdle? And I will not use IP framework because you advised me not to. It's the importance of creating a strong end-to-end public-private partnership. I think, again, what has happened with the APAs, what has happened with HERA is a first good step, but let's think at scale. We cannot invent more molecules in Europe than in the US if the funding is dwarf compared to what it is in other parts of the world. So we need to think big projects that we develop together. On the subject of transparency, you know that we share our accounts. We are quoted companies, and what we spend on R&D is very well known. So I'm not sure I see the topic there. There was a question from Mr. Orville on what are we going to do in terms of sharing information for the vaccine when it comes to be more used, especially for those people that are a little bit more concerned of some previous first generation. there's no secret here. What we will do is share transparently all the data about the vaccine and engage with the vaccination ecosystem, i.e. engage with the vaccinees, with the population, engage with the practitioners, with the nurses, engage with the hospitals and the point of vaccination. And if by transparency of the data, then we can move forward all together. There was a question of, are public-private partnerships still working in Europe? Do we need more of those? Yes, they are working, but we need more of those, and we need to have them at scale and at pace in order for Europe to be competitive, build the health industry it deserves, and build the healthcare jobs it deserves to have in Europe. And there was a question about, have we studied the safety of the vaccines? Yes, we did study the safety of the vaccine. All the safety data is available and shared with the authorities in order to be able for them to make the decision on the accessibility of the product. Finally, are we in favor of a pandemic treaty? I think a pandemic treaty idea is very interesting with a couple of elements. First of all, it needs to be done with a spirit to foster and to grow a research-based ecosystem to make sure that we have all the tools possible for the next pandemic. If that's the orientation of such a pandemic treaty, it's something of interest. Second point, a pandemic treaty, in my view, can only work if it involves industry, and whereas if it's something that's done by a few people on the side, excluding industry, I'm not too sure how it's going to work when actually the pandemic strikes. So let's make sure that we engage all together.
Okay, thank you very much, and both to Dr. Ertel and Mr. Triomphe and your teams, because I know you don't do this work on your own, your teams, for being here, taking the time, answer all these questions coming from different political sides. I think that is important, and it's important also that we can take that along in the drafting of our report on the lessons learned. Thanks again for being here, physically present. That makes it more easy to work for us, and we'll keep in contact if we have any other questions that relate to the work that we do in the COVID committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I can ask AstraZeneca to come to the front, and if I'm correctly informed, Mr. Stefan Bancel from Moderna is online with us. That's all okay? Is that right? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for leading us through it.
It was okay, it was okay.